A to the K. A to the K.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to the A2theK Wrestling Show, and welcome to our latest edition of 10, where we're talking the 10 worst world champions of all times.
And we had to say champions because we did start with world champions, and then we kept devolving into WWE. Then we said WWE champions, and then we kept devolving into world.
Yeah.
So we're like, fuck it, champions.
Yeah, basically.
We're good at making lists.
Yeah, so this will be, regardless of whether they are WWE champ, whether they were World Heavyweight champ, basically held the top strap in WWE.
But we are going to acknowledge real championships, not like that brief ECW one they brought out and abandoned pretty quick.
Yeah.
Not the original ECW run, like the WWE ECW. Like,
yeah.
That's not going to count.
WWE ECW, that's the one.
Yeah.
With the zombie and all those fun
the
times.
zombie. I mean, to be fair, the original ECW had the zombie too.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't quite the same.
No.
But without further ado, let's start with number 10. And I'm going to
The
bring
mayor
to
of
the
Knox
table
County himself.
Glenn. Shit,
The man who's just had to pay out a ton of money because he got people to do work on his house in the lunch break without getting paid.
Pretty much.
That guy.
Yeah.
Not going to mention that though.
No, of course not. But yeah, this is a bit of a stickler for me. There was a time when I fucking loved Kane. I think Kane was maybe my favourite wrestler. Poster on my wall kind of time. Like
before you started putting pictures of Trish and stuff.
Oh yeah, then everything changed.
Then I saw her face.
Now I'm a creamer. Right, so yeah, I don't know. I remember just being super hyped for this match. It was Stone Cold versus Kane. It was a first blood match, and I was like, well, how's Kane gonna bleed? He wears a mask. What's gonna go on? It was this amazing spectacle at the time, and I was like, finally, Kane's gonna get his crown in a moment, and he did. The match was okay, and
it was okay.
It was okay, and I think Kane did actually bleed, but the referee couldn't see it because of his mask, and so
it was always going to be the problem.
Yeah, so ultimately ended up being Austin. He beat Austin. He won the belt, which would be fine, except for the fact that was it. To be fair, he lost the belt the next night. And obviously he's gone on to become a world champion and stuff like that. And he's won the world heavyweight title.
But let's talk about this time.
But this was his first main, WWE title that he'd won, and I was like, finally, he's gonna get the run that we all wanted and he deserved, and it just didn't happen. So he lost it the next night. He had it for less than 24 hours. And yeah, when you think about it, looking back on his career, and similar to Taker here, where he probably didn't need the belt necessarily. But other ther that other World Heavyweight Championship run, this was his only run with the WWE title. It feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's one of them things where you go, really? You don't expect that to be the case. It was the case.
So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it was the time he had Paul Bearer by his side, and he was starting to be kind of built up, and it made sense. And he was he felt like he fit in the main event scene with the likes of Austin. And then, yeah, for it to just kind of end the way it did, and then for him to be separated from it for so long, as a Kane fan at the time, I was pissed. To be fair,
pissed, man,
pissed. Shouldn't have been drinking at age 11, but it's that holdable.
You are northern.
But this is true. Well, we are British. So coming in at number 10, Kane.
Rey Mysterio. So, this might be a little bit of a hot take, because I know some people love Rey. And don't be wrong, he's a super talented dude. But he should never have been anywhere near the World Championship scene. And I still maintain that. I'm a firm believer that he's too cruiserweight, he's too small for that division. Right? And some people, this is where it might be a hot take, because some people will disagree with me. And some people might even go, well, AEW, there's nothing but small wrestlers with world champion. Right, fine, you want to play that game, right? The problem is the imbalance. Like, the Adam fighting guys like Batista and Big Show. Like, I'm willing to suspend disbelief for wrestling, but it never made sense to me.
No.
Like, how is he winning? Sheer luck. Like, I'll give him because he's won the world title twice, and he's won the WWE title once, very briefly. And I'll give him one run, and that is when, on the back of Eddie's sad passing, he has essentially went on a bit of a run in honour of Eddie, and won the title, and it was in homage to Eddie, and we had all that. Well, as much as I think it's cringe now, and he's like, "Oh, Eddie," like and it's like
that from last week or
no, the first time he did that too,
yeah.
and this kind of problem because that worked for him then, and that's what got him into the main title scene. He's like, and I know they were family, and I know he loves them, and I know he's not doing it to disrespect them, but from a fan point of view, I'm like, you were Rey Mysterio for a long time. Can we not just be Rey Mysterio, not Eddie's mate? Yeah. Because that's all you get really now. Yeah. But anyway, ignoring that side of it, it's never sat well with me that he's been world champion. Every time he's had the belt, he's got people like John Cena and Batista and Big Show and people who just totally outsize him. And
well, even like when he won the Royal Rumble, it was like by eliminating the Big Show last year. I mean, it's like, I'm not being funny, Rey Mysterio, you just like flick him out the ring, wouldn't you?
And I'm just, to be honest, it's not the worst story in the world, but every single story it felt like with Rey Mysterio was David and Goliath, and I'm just just done with it. I can't be asked. Yeah. So I've never been a fan of his title runs.
No, me neither.
How can you be the champ and the underdog at the same time?
It's a very good point. Well, in fact, you can be the champ and the underdog if you're a chicken shit heel who shouldn't have the belt in the first place. But how do you be a baby face? How do you be the baby face who's the champ, but you think, fucking hell, he can't possibly beat this? Like, I don't know.
Well, you go, I can beat this guy who I've only got the opportunity to, like, back away and then run and jump really high, because that's usually his thing too. Pretty much.
But no, the circumstances are obviously unfortunate. I think with Eddie's passing and stuff, and then them putting it on Rey and things like that, I get the intentions are probably good, but it did feel forced. And I think, as we've just said, then it's a shame that his career trajectory after that became the Eddie Guerrero tribute act.
Yeah. To the point he's passed that on to his son now.
Yeah, exactly. I am the new Eddie Guerrero.
Did somebody say frog splash?
Yeah, like no. So yeah, I agree. Not the best of champions. And speaking of not the best of champions, Anthony, and this is controversial potentially because by all accounts, Andre the Giant should have been a world champion. He's a fucking giant, and quite the opposite to what you were saying about Rey. You look at Andre and think, well, yeah, he's going to beat the shit out of everyone. He's a literal giant. So my problem with this wasn't so much the fact that he became champion. It was the fact that after he beat Hogan, he then sold the belt to Ted DiBiase straight away.
Disrespect.
Which that in itself is bad enough, but what it then meant was the guy we all hated at the time, President Jack Tunney, then decided that you can't sell the belt, and therefore the title was going to be vacated. And what's more tragic about all this was Andre's only time with the belt. And I get it, similar to what I was saying about Kane, he's a special attraction guy.
Yes.
He doesn't need the belt. He was a giant. People came to see Andre the Giant. He doesn't need to be your world champion. But it's a bit tragic to think that even though he reached the pinnacle of that, he then sold it to say, like, literally a second later and didn't end up with a run. So it kind of defeated the whole point.
What's it worth, out of curiosity?
I can't remember what he paid for it. $1 million or something, probably. Because obviously he then did the $1 million title and all that stuff. So
almost as if Ted DiBiase's got a history of poor investments.
Maybe. But again, that irks me as well, because Ted DiBiase is another guy who should have been a world champion.
Yeah.
And so technically he was, but it's not recognised. And it's just like, the whole situation just really pissed me off, because both of them should have had a reign as champ, and a legitimate one at that, and neither of them ended up getting that, unfortunately. So yeah, massive shame. I was a huge Andre fan, and to think the only time he won the main belt was in this fashion, and to then not really actually be the champion was wasted opportunity, I think. Could have done some good business with Hogan.
Could have. I agree. So, Carl, right? This may be a bit of a personal opinion. Jeff Hardy. I feel like Jeff Hardy is massively overrated. And this is largely the reason that he's on my list, or on this list, because I don't think his run with the title was ever really that great. I feel like he was just kind of still there, and they were like, well, you've been here long enough, right? So they give him a go. I feel like he was the least talented of the Hardy boys. Matt was the much more creative. He proved that in bags. I don't know. He proved that loads in Impact and stuff like that. Jeff was just like, he was always he always had his demons, And I know it's not a reason that he shouldn't be champion, but he was always sort of problematic anyway as a solo run in the WWE especially. And I was just rather underwhelmed with him as a champion. I never wanted it. He's almost a similar problem to Rey, where he's very much a cruiserweight and doesn't really fit the division.
Yeah.
But he was there, don't be wrong, he was there at a time when you were fighting like the likes of CM Punks and that, so it didn't look ridiculous. And he never really, I don't suppose he had the same issue I had with Rey, where he constantly looked outsized and the underdog and all that kind of stuff. But I've never been big on Jeff. I've never understood the fascination, and I don't think he's really had, if you think about it, did he really have a memorable run? Can you remember? Oh, do you remember that really great match?
No.
He had because there weren't any.
If
we're being honest,
the thing that I always remember about Jeff was that ladder match he had with Taker. And obviously he got so close to winning it that people were like, and I feel like that.
And there's iconic bit where he got a bit of respect from Taker and all. I remember.
So there was that, and people were like, maybe Jeff Hardy could be the champ. I just don't think he could. Unfortunately, a lot of people love Jeff Hardy, and you can see why. And he's obviously got his fans.
I can't.
Well, I can see why people would love him. But yeah, I've never been a huge fan of him either. But again, I think it was kind of like that. It was almost like, he's been here forever. The fans are over on him. Let's give him a go. And I just don't think it ever really materialised.
Honestly, it could be a list by itself when you look at people who got a chance at the title just because they were still there.
Yeah, but if you look at it, like, I kind of agree with you. Matt Hardy's always been the one that stood out a bit more creatively. But then you look at someone like Edge, and Edge carried it. He felt like a world champ.
He did.
Whereas Jeff, and you probably argue for Christian as well, to be fair, similar, where he won the belt and you kind of like...
Christian's definitely the Jeff of that tag team, though.
Yeah. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Christian hasn't made this list because he annoys me less. Plus, did Christian have a title run with WWE?
I think he had a world title.
He had
the world title, I think. I don't think he ever won the WWE title.
I'm trying to remember, because I know he definitely had titles with Impact.
Yeah.
I just can't remember if he had them.
I think he was the ECW champ for a bit, and then I think he did win the world title once.
So that was the thing. But yeah, Edge felt like a world champ. And I don't think Matt was ever really given a proper opportunity, because Vince always seemed bigger on Jeff.
Yeah.
Matt could have had, again, I'm sure he's had the title at some point, but he could have had a much better run with WWE. I'm trying to think very briefly around the Bray Wyatt time.
Yeah, he had the ECW title, didn't he? It's the only main title he won.
Not around. I know Bray had the title at one point, and when they were like doing the whole Woken match, did he not win it briefly then? No. Okay. So Matt deserves better, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, he does. Definitely does.
Also better than what he's getting in AEW at the minute while we're on that topic.
Very true.
But I've just, some people may disagree. I know some people are big on Jeff, but if we're being honest, there wasn't that much of a memorable championship run with him, was there?
No, I agree. So, each to their own.
He's got a chopstick though.
This is true. Coming in at number 6, so we've got to talk about Sergeant Slaughter.
Your side of the list is just very well. Let's talk about the golden era. Like, for fuck's sake.
I think these are my trauma childhood memories. Almost.
Yeah, this is what little Carl just really got annoyed about back in the day. Never let this shit go, you know.
I was so pissed about this. So you had, and don't get me wrong, Sergeant Slaughter, awesome guy, had a great career with WWE. Don't get me wrong. He was always a mid-carder, a lower mid-carder, in fact. He was the army sergeant guy. He was mid. And then, obviously, they brought him in at the height of the Iraq and USA war, and they had him as an Iraq sympathiser fucking thing. I lined them up with...
Let's get some heat, then.
Yeah, I lined them up with Iron Sheik and stuff like that. So straight away, it felt unnatural anyway, and it felt really thrown together. But... his booking was awful in the lead up to winning the belt anyway. Like he beat Ultimate Warrior for the title, but Warrior was having a feud with Savage, and it was actually Savage got involved, and I think Warrior was nearly counted out several times, and Sergeant Slaughter had to keep breaking the count, and then eventually Sensational Sherry fucking hit him over the head with a fucking wrench or a lead pipe or something, and then Slaughter hit the fucking worst elbow drop finish you've ever seen in your life, and then became the champ. And it was all leading towards, obviously, the American hero, Hulk Hogan.
American hero.
It was just so convoluted. It was awful. And it's just, no offence, but you look at Sergeant Slaughter, he's not a world champ, is he? Sadly. He's someone who was super low card, never should have been anywhere near that title picture. So to go on and beat the likes of Warrior and have a fucking WrestleMania main event with Hogan, it's probably the low of the low when it came to the title. And if you think about that main event as well, they originally had planned to have like 100,000 seater stadium for that, and the ticket sales were atrocious, so they had to basically fucking move it to like a 10,000 seat venue. You know what I mean? Like who does that? Who devalues the belt that much to fucking have to change the venue?
It's okay, Carl. Can't hurt you anymore.
Okay. But the thing was, there was no winner for me because it was then, do you want Hogan to win? No.
It's okay, Carl.
So it's not okay. It's never going to be okay.
They're both retired now. It's fine.
It's still real to me. Damn it. So Sergeant Slaughter should have never been anywhere near this fucking belt.
Fair. Fair. Speaking of people who should never... Now, kidding, right? I was saying this to you off air and I'll say it here. This is someone who could have had a really good run with the belt, right? Sadly, he got the championship at a time when WWE they were trying some things. So he won the belt.
Drugs.
Well, he was also trying some things. But now ultimately, let's talk about that real quick, right? His title run was sort of squashed by the fact that there was some controversies over drug use. He was released from the company or suspended from the company and then never really quite got the momentum back, right? So I'll go out and say right now, I don't think he is a bad option for a world champion, or was a bad option for a world champion. I just feel like that the run he had was fucking ruined by that. He lost all that momentum, right? But also, when you look at the actual title run he had, it got messy because they were trying to establish the ECW brand. So he won the belt, and then was taken over to ECW. No, sorry, he was taken over to ECW, and then won the belt in that sort of crossover they did against John Cena.
Yeah.
So he was already in ECW, but then won that belt. So it's like, well, we might as well call this the ECW belt. And it's like, but they didn't do that. Instead, they reintroduced the ECW belt, and then suddenly he had both belts. And then he was defending both belts. And again, you could go, well, that was pretty cool. He had to defend both belts and so on. But for me, they made his whole championship run for what we had of it very messy because they were too busy trying to establish the ECW brand. And then obviously the controversy hit. He was suspended and then never quite got that momentum back to be what he could have been. And this is probably the biggest crying shame for me in the list, because I feel like he could have had a really solid championship run here. And sadly, he never really... I think this was pretty much him done with WWE as well at that point. Not straight away. He had the suspension, he'd come back, etc. But
yeah, like, the writing was on the wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's never really been back in WWE with any significant run after that. And we'll probably never see him as a world champion in WWE, which is a real shame.
It was a massive shame anyway, to think, obviously, like, because did he beat him at One Night Stand?
Yes.
Was that when he...
I was trying to remember what it's called. That crossover bit where you had the likes of John Cena and that there for some reason.
Because obviously those fans were fucking... Obviously, they wanted to kill Cena. And then the fact that
it made
RVD
sense.
won, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But I feel like they booked it and didn't know where to go anyway. So even if this hadn't happened, I didn't have high hopes of where Rob Van Dam was going to go as the world champ.
This is where I think they shit the bed a little bit. This is why they went... Like, I think it was a flippant remark from Paul Heyman, like, this should be the ECW belt. But they were never going to get rid of their main title, right? So they introduced the ECW belt and just give him it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so if you were going to do that, why has he won this one? Yeah. And it just never made much sense. It's like, it almost feels like, because they hadn't established the ECW belt at that point, it'd feel disrespectful for him to just drop the world title to someone. Then you're not giving RVD the respect he deserves. But what do? They fucked themselves up, I think. Yeah, just wasn't it's just a shame. It was a bit of a mess. But he had all the chops to be a world champ. So I think it was a real shame.
It is a shame timing wise as well. He proved himself, like, in WWE at that point that he
was one of a kind.
That was a fucking awesome entrance thing, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, such a banger.
Wasn't it? We used to have we used to make it up, didn't we? It was like, how do you eat this? One at a time. We'd always come up with different shit.
Yeah. That was one of the classics. It's a shame because the other, I think, one of the best WWE themes, and I won't go into it too much, was Benoit's.
Yes.
A banger of a tune, and obviously it's
no holding you back except when it comes to talking about them.
Yeah, but it's connected to that forever now, and
indeed.
Anywho,
and I feel like you've pointed out now that I'm just going down the old school new generation era, because the next one
we're in two different eras right now.
Is the one and only Yokozuna. Anyone who's a fan of this
Japanese
show,
guy.
Yeah, he looks so Japanese. Doesn't he? Anyone who's a fan of this show knows my feelings about WrestleMania 9. I fucking despise it. It's not because I'm just a massive Bret mark.
I thought that was the one you loved. Oh no, that's WrestleMania 2.
No. You're horrible. You're a horrible person. But yeah, WrestleMania 9, you know, the story is well known. Bret Hart, Yokozuna, Mr. Fuji throws the fucking flour or powder or whatever in Bret's eyes, and Yoko gets the win. My boyhood dreams are crushed. Bret Hart has lost the belt. And what do? Hulk Hogan comes down, and naturally, you got a piece of shit like Hulk Hogan that comes down, and Bret Hart goes, "Yeah, man, you get him. You avenge my loss." Fucking worst thing Bret Hart ever done, ever. I can't believe he ever agreed to this booking.
I'd deal with it myself, but you know.
Yeah, you know, the eyes. You go and win the belt for me, brother.
You're a real American.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he's Canadian.
Yeah. But yeah, so that whole situation pissed me off. And the fact that Yokozuna, who was already gassed, like if you read Bret Hart's autobiography, he was like, at this point, Yoko was like, we need to go home. I'm fucked. So Yoko was out of it. And then... yeah, so the whole thing never made any sense why Fuji or Yoko would accept a challenge from Hogan, and then he just obliterates him in seconds, and it ruined.
Just like, no.
Well,
I've done my match.
In that one night, to try and appeal to fucking Hulk Hogan, they ruined the credibility of the belt. They ruined Bret and they ruined Yoko. And what it said is all that shit didn't matter because Hulk Hogan can beat the pair of these motherfuckers in like 5 seconds. And
you think they'd have learned a lesson at this pay-per-view not to pander to someone's ego, but they did not learn that lesson, Carl.
You're gonna go down Goldberg. You're gonna go down. Are you gonna go down?
There's so many. Even Hogan again. To be honest with you,
I can't believe he was the champion in like 2002 or something, wasn't he? Like what the fuck?
Ridiculous, man.
Remember that? Oh
yeah.
My God.
I still remember the Mr. America fiasco.
Yeah.
It's just, well, we've fired him now, so we're gonna have to write that out somehow.
Yeah. And like, you know, this was meant to be all part of Hogan and Yoko having the rematch and Yoko winning, and all that happened with shenanigans, of course. And then his second run wasn't that bad, but this goes down as one of the worst reigns of all time.
How long did that last officially then?
Like fucking 30 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
So he won
probably the shortest run in history, really.
Get him, Hulk. And then Hulk was like, big boots, leg drop, win.
That's a shirt, right? It's a t-shirt right there.
Pretty much.
That was Hulk Hogan, yeah. I'm not even sure. Like, everyone remembers the iconic slam to Andre, but beyond that, it was, yeah,
basically.
Leg drop. Oh, you got to Hulk up as well. Oh, yeah. I've never... The one thing I'll give Hogan his credit for is he was able to sell... Well, how do I put this? He was able to gimmick no selling as a thing. That's disrespectful most of the time. But if you call it hulking up, you can no sell everything.
Oh yeah,
it's boss because you're just the Hulk, right? That still baffles me. Like, that's a thing. I'm just gonna no sell you for a couple of minutes. Yeah. It's like,
what's the most Hogan thing ever, though, isn't it? Is, well, what you do to me can't hurt me because I'm Hulk Hogan in this brief moment.
Hold on, I'm currently hulking up.
Yeah. So, yeah, furious still to this day by this whole thing.
Can't wait to see what your next golden era wrestler's gonna be.
Shut up. Over to you for another modern day Maharaji.
Okay, so there's a couple of elements to this, right? Jinder Mahal had, I don't know where he is at the minute, has a lot of potential. I'm not an issue with the potential that he could be a world champion someday, but they booked this in like a really kind of messed up way, in the sense of like, well, if we're being honest, and I've mentioned this before, they wanted to appeal to the Indian market. They were doing events, or planning on doing events over there, and he was the first ever world champion of Indian descent, and that was done with a reason. But because it was done with a reason, they didn't build him up. It came out of nowhere. It came just literally from the mid card. No build up.
Probably wasn't even mid card.
No credibility really. I think the only notable thing he'd done was 3MB. And
that's what I mean. They were like fucking like jobbers to the stars.
Exactly. So he went from being jobber to champ in the space of like a fucking week.
Out of nowhere.
And they shit the bed because they didn't really know what to do with him. There wasn't really a book in there. The storytelling was awful. To the point that he, like, they put him in like a series of matches, and I'm trying to remember the sequence it went, because he won it, then he lost it, then he had a match to win it back, insisted on a rematch, which was a Punjabi prison match, and lost in his own match type. The booking was just horrendous here. Yeah. And he could have, and maybe still could be a great champion.
How long did he hold it for as well? Didn't he hold it for a decent amount? Like longer than anyone thought.
Longer than you'd expect. I want to say it was about 164 days, in the hundreds. So it was a lot longer than you expect. But in that space of time, there was no real memorable matches, and I think that was the final nail in the coffin, is that he loses it, gets his rematch clause because they were a thing then, and insists on a Punjabi prison match in homage to the Great Khali, and can't even win his own match type.
Yeah,
and I was done at that point. I'm like, you fucked this right up. What was this? What was the booking for this?
Yeah.
But again, he's another one who I think maybe someday he could have been a world champ. But where was the mid card scene? Even after he lost this title, they then went, well, maybe he can be in the US title scene. It's like, no, you fucking shit the bed on that now. We don't do that.
No.
You don't look at anyone else. You don't go, John Cena's now the world champ, but he's going to go back. Well, actually, that's a bad example. You don't go, Hulk Hogan never even went near the mid card. He just didn't go fuck about the mid card.
Yeah. Well, it's like you can clearly see that he had the 3MB stuff, and they decided not to fire him for whatever reason. He went away, worked his ass off, came back,
he was
physically
jacked.
Transformed, and Vince probably went, "Oh baby, we want to break in the air, and you look sexy, so you're going to be our champ."
Look at them veins.
So you kind of see the rationale behind it to a degree, but the fact it lasted so long and they didn't have anywhere to go, because the shock factor was like I remember seeing the people in the audience just being like, holy shit, Jinder Mahal is
honestly
the champ?
the story could have been that.
Yeah.
The like unexpected jobber just won everything. Right? That could have been a story, but they didn't even fucking acknowledge that. Like, they could have you either build him up before you get the title, or you actually make the point of the whole story that he won it out of nowhere, and like he's like, shit, I've like gone from like nothing to like, what, I started from the bottom, now I'm here. You know? But no, they didn't. They didn't even go with that.
They didn't really think any of it through. I don't think. I think they just saw, well, we want to break the Indian market. We've got this guy who's been working on his physique. He's come back. He's looks like a main event star.
That guy looks like he could break the Indian market.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely a short-sighted decision, I would say. Speaking of short-sighted decisions,
at least you've got to the Attitude Era.
I know, yeah. There's literally nothing from the last like fucking 2 decades. Let's be fair.
Guess where Carl lives? In the past.
So real to me. So obviously you're Vince McMahon, and for all the shit that Tony Khan gets about having all his daddy's fucking money and buying all his wrestlers and playing with them, supposedly, but he hasn't
waiting
booked
for that
himself
scandal to be
the
released.
fucking champ, has he? Now, obviously, you and me, massive fans of the Royal Rumble, the 99 or 98 Rumble, I forget which one it was. Vince McMahon books himself to go over in the Rumble, so that itself was insane. But when you think he can't top that, so he didn't go on to win the title or even have the match at Mania, but that September, so like 9 months later, he goes and beats Triple H in a random match on SmackDown with Steve Austin's help.
So he's got to win over his son-in-law, that's boss.
Well, yeah. So he beat Triple H, and then, which would have been, I wouldn't have minded so much, again, if there was a direction of travel for it, but there wasn't. He won it, and then he literally vacated it a week later. And it was like, well, I've won the belt. My name's in history. I was the champion of my own promotion. There you go. And he went on to obviously win the ECW belt as Do-Rag Vince. So
Do-Rag Vince. I don't know why I go straight to The Office.
I fucking love that. Like, to be fair, Michael Scott and Vince McMahon, you can see.
Yeah, honestly, I would. I don't know if it's ever true, but you gotta wonder if he took some steers from that kind of stuff.
Maybe. But yeah, so it's one of those. It's something which just should never have really happened. You get why, you own the company. I'm gonna make myself the champ and say that I was champ. You kind of get it, but like, you look down at the list of champions, and you've got your fucking Bruno Sammartinos and your Hogans and your Bret Harts, and he's there. Vince McMahon. Yeah. So yeah, of all the people, he's definitely very, very high up there on people the worst champs.
Got to give him his credit though. He put in the work for the physique.
Oh yeah,
which a lot of management types.
He still does to this day. He's a freak, and he gets up at like fucking 4 a.m. and still spends like 3 hours in the gym every morning.
Genetic freak.
Genetic jackhammer. Which, Anthony, leads us to the drum roll to find out number 1, the worst champion of all time. Can't even hold the belt the right fucking way around.
So, the Great Khali.
The not so great Khali.
The not so great Khali. Honestly, this is similar to the stuff we've been saying about Kane and the stuff we were saying about Andre, in that this guy is a spectacle. People come to see him because he's that sort of like, the sheer size of him alone, people are like, God damn, that's crazy, right?
You're 7 feet tall and you can't teach that.
Exactly. Yeah. So people were turning up for the sheer size of this guy. They just wanted to see him in a match. He was never that great in the ring, in all honesty. Well, I don't want to say never. In WWE, he was never that great in the ring. And now, by all accounts, you know, his run in WWE was at a time when, you know, he started to suffer a lot more anyway. Like, I think his knees were pretty much fucked towards the end of his WWE run. But, like, when you look at some of the stuff he did way before WWE, in the independents and stuff like that, he could go in the ring at one point. So I'm not discrediting him at all as a wrestler, but you know, his run in WWE, he couldn't really move all that much. His finisher was what, like, just the claw thing.
Just literally grab someone by the head.
Yeah, so it was and it was like the whole thing. Like, as an in-ring performer, it wasn't great. He couldn't talk. Obviously, he was that typical, like, I can say a few things, but not much. So he needed a mouthpiece. He couldn't really wrestle. It just wasn't great from that point of view. And I don't know, for me, this type of scenario is where you go, no, you should never really have a title run. No. He doesn't need one, because he's there for the big man spectacle that you need. He doesn't need to be in the title scene, because it's a hindrance, in all honesty, without any disrespect.
Again, you've got a question similar to Jinder, whether or not this was like an Indian market kind of play of trying to do that. But honestly, this is the guy who became the fucking, what was he called? The Punjabi playboy at one point as well. And it's like, easy champ.
Sadly, I can't even remember how his run finished. I know it didn't last very long. It was like 70 odd days, if that. But it was over pretty quick. So I'll give it that. That's a plus.
Did he never get involved in like a Punjabi prison match? Is that just me just like making
No,
that?
he definitely... Well, he got involved in Jinder's Punjabi prison match. That was his return to WWE, however brief. But I don't know if he may have had one himself in WWE. I don't think it was for the title though. But yeah, it wasn't the longest run either he had with the belt, but it's this kind of thing that I've never really been a fan of the championships for. It's like, you're never going to get a great in-ring match out of this, and he doesn't need to be the top card guy. He just needs to be the big man.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, obviously, as you said, he was winding down his career at the time in WWE, but in-ring ability was severely lacking. His microphone, like, talking capability wasn't great either. And it's like, this guy's your top champ. It's like, wasn't the best fit. Yeah,
so it's no disrespect to him. I know he was a really talented dude. Is a really talented dude, but you get to a point of that guy's size, if your knees are giving out, it's fucking difficult, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But no, I think you're right. I think I can't think of a worse champ they've had than Khali, and it's no massive disrespect to him. It's just someone who never needed it, never should have been given it, and just didn't carry it with esteem. Yeah,
it was just a stale few weeks of belts, wasn't it? Really,
pretty much. So they were our 10 worst world champions of all time. Let us know in the comments. If you watch on YouTube, do you agree? Do you disagree? Did we miss someone out? Have we got the order completely wrong? Let us know. If you are watching us on YouTube, why aren't you checking us out on pwtv? So you can go to Pro Wrestling TV, check us out there. We've got some awesome talk shows on there as well as us.
Indeed.
We've got some awesome wrestling on there. You've got MLW.
When you talk about awesome stuff, like one I happened across the other day is us.
Oh, well,
so I'm just going to plug us. Barry Blaustein. I want to give a bit of love to the Barry Blaustein episode.
Yes.
Barry Blaustein is a true wrestling fan and a writer. Wrote the likes of Coming to America.
Yeah.
Wrote Beyond the Mat as far as the wrestling world goes. He's a script writer. So Carl obviously loved him, but just a really awesome guy. Still a wrestling fan to this day, and just deserves a bit of love, I think. Yeah. To be honest,
such a sound dude. Yeah. But fascinating that I actually worked so long with Eddie Murphy on a lot of his projects, and Beyond the Mat, what a documentary that was, the best wrestling documentary,
quintessential documentary
of all time. So check that out as well if you've not seen it. But yeah, there's loads of awesome stuff on Pro Wrestling TV, so check that out. Christmas is coming up, and what says I love you to your loved ones more than a keg from Top Rope Brewing? They have these awesome mini kegs of the new flavours.
That's just like a hug.
It is. Hug in a keg. So you can use our code A2theK10 and get yourself 10% off at topropebrewing.com. And obviously, you want to stay warm in the winter, so why not buy some t-shirts? That's what I think. So
we know you can't put the heating on this year. Buy a hoodie.
Just buy several t-shirts and do a Joey and just wear all the clothes. So Pro Wrestling Tees, you can get our main merch there as well, including the newest designs, courtesy of Alt Wrestling Tees.
Alt Wrestling
So you can find those
legends.
guys on Instagram, and as well as doing designs for us, they do plenty of other wrestling themed designs as well. So current
mentioned it on the other segments, but yeah, the latest one being a tribute to Jake Hager's hat, which is hysterical.
Yes.
But
They've got
again,
loads of stuff
topical.
acclaimed. They've got like literally anything that comes out. Sheamus banger after banger after banger. They've just got awesome stuff. And now they're making tees for us as well. So you've got to go and check those guys out. And I think that's all the plug-in for this week.
I think it is all plugged.
So until next time, we will say thank you, fuck you, and bye.